Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the ethics of astrology, and I'm going to be talking about what I think is significant as far as following as far as the ethics go in astrology and following them as well, of course. Now, one fundamental rule I think is, and some people don't follow it, but I think, and you don't really hear this really talked about, but not much. But I think don't. I would say not instigating issues, contentious situations with other astrologers, and the thing. I mean, if you have like something where you have a disparity of a viewpoint on something, whether it's in an astrological video or a writing or some blog, you could always contact the person and write them or but making things like making derogatory, nasty statements about a person because they don't share that certain viewpoint astrologically on an astrological issue. That is something I would just say is completely not cool, and it's not something that should really go on. We're dealing with a lot of adverse things in society right now between the coronavirus pandemic and the rioting, and we have it appears to be uh, escalation in police violence, volatility by law enforcement. So we need to have as much positivity in as far as astrology goes, and we don't want to cause dissension. We don't want division. It's about unity and actually trying to help each other and be supportive of each other. It's like whether it's a direct statement or you make a subtle dig about somebody. In the subtle dig, I'll give you an example. Let's say hypothetically somebody was to make a meme and they were to make a reference, say, about a video I had, say, like the most unfaithful zodiac sign, and saying, well, why is Gemini getting all the heat for this as opposed to Pisces or something? Instead, I mean, the person can just contact the person in question that makes the video and at least talk it out with them and say you have a constructive disagreement in some viewpoint. Then all you got to do is just reach out. And sadly, we just don't have that too much anymore. And don't be contradictory either when you're acting as an astrologer. Don't preach peace when you're actually what you're doing is you're actually instigating the same time. I mean, there's really not many people that are like that, but if you are a person that's like that, just avoid contradictory behavior because people will see that at some point and take notice of it, and you can lose credibility as an astrologer because of that. Now, another thing I want to talk about is a very fundamental rule, and this might be really paramount in the astrology world, is confidentiality. It's about not disclosing or divulging birth data. This is a pretty obvious one. And keeping privileged information private. If somebody has a physical debilitation or a mental default, let's say developmental debility or debilitation, it's not something you would really talk about, although there's some people may speak about somebody anonymously without saying their name. Well, I saw this person's chart and I saw all these indicators for physical debilitations, which is something you could justify if you're not speaking the person by name. But still, even so, it's just basically better to not reveal the kind of information about about an individual. And the thing about it too is, I mean, you can, like, if you're trying to say, well, for example, I have this chart and I saw a number of indicators for mental disorders, and you're speaking again anonymously, then that may be okay. But I mean, the main thing is and you're not divulging the person's name, and you want, but at the same time you don't really you maybe even get in the habit of that because you might unwittingly at some point or by accident reveal the person's name in the process. And the thing is, it's just not something that you really want to get into. You could always say, oh, I saw this person's chart. There were a number of indicators for mental illness, and this person had this problem. Well, you're not saying the name. At least that's not. You're really not. You do. You're really not gonna. It's not gonna be that really detrimental to that person if you're not mentioning the name at least. So anyway, but enough of that. The thing is, I think another thing is that being respectful toward clients as well. And it's like if you see something in someone's chart that's very adverse, and it's something that seems rather, almost supremely negative, there's ways to say it in a constructive manner and not in an inflammatory or derogatory manner. If you see indicators in the chart where this person might have had some difficulty finding love in his or her life, and say the person's got their natal Venus in adverse aspect to their Saturn, and Venus in the 12th house, or Venus is strongly afflicted. The 5th house has malefic planets in it, and you could say you might be able to brighten them and try to find something, or at least let them know when in the future they're getting maybe some transit, for example, that might be beneficial to them in the love department, like say transit Jupiter making a sextile or trine to their natal Venus, or perhaps even a conjunction to their natal Venus. But there's ways of saying things without putting somebody down, and you might unwittingly alienate a person if you say something in a really derogatory manner about their chart, and it could diminish business from that person in the future. So, and the thing is, too, this is something that you hear talked about frequently, is about not predicting death to a client. Now, the thing about it is, you may, like, if you see a period, like something in the chart, whether it's through transits or what have you, progressions, where something is going to happen soon, or this person might succumb to some debilitation. When I say succumb to a debilitation, I don't mean dying. I mean somebody that might just get, some sickness or illness coming on. You can forewarn them about that. I mean, or if there's diminished vitality you see in the future. Say, for example, if you see transit Neptune making an adverse aspect soon to the person's natal Mars, Sun, or Ascendant, they might feel more lethargic during that time, and their energy may be dissipated or diminished. Now, or if, say, for another example, let's say they have transit Jupiter in their chart hitting their 6th house, and let's say it's making an inconjunct aspect, especially if it's making an inconjunct aspect to the Ascendant or an adverse aspect to their Sun or their Mars. It might be, some liver issue that might be going on at that time. So you have to no one has to do anything, but it may be critical to say something in a situation where you could just tell them, okay, look, I see something that might be coming on where you might be dealing with some major, health issues. So that, if that's something you want to say, then that's what you're going to do. And there's going to be some astrologers that might want to predict death to the client. It's not something advisable, but the thing too is, some of you may know I did a video regarding astrology and predicting death, and I'm not saying that should be stated to a client, but a person can look at their own chart and evaluate when they think there might be a greater propensity for passing away. There are, of course, indicators for that. Now, if I remember right, when I did it, there was some video I did about astrology and assassination, I believe. And what happened was, remember when Martin Luther King was assassinated? At that time, if I remember correctly, his progressed sun had made a conjunction to his part of his Arabic part of assassination. And there are things that you can look on your own if you're experienced in astrology and you advance well beyond the novice level. You could probably evaluate, you could see things in your own chart that could indicate that without having to, trying to cajole an astrologer to tell you that anyway. Now, another thing I want to state is that when you're talking about the ethics of astrology, another fundamental rule I would say is, and you don't really hear this talked about much, but I think this is still significant, is don't think you're better than another astrologer because you have greater notoriety than them, or because you have more knowledge than that person does. It doesn't make, it might mean a person might has more fame, they might have more fortune, they may have more prosperity, they may also have, they might have greater knowledge than other astrologers, but it doesn't give you a right to condescend them and remind them somehow that you're better than them, and putting another astrologer down that might not be have as much popularity as you, for example. It doesn't make you mightier than them. It's just going to make you look worse in the long run. People are going to pick up on that, and what they're going to do, and it could hurt your credibility as well, not just as an astrologer, but as a person as well. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, well, last but not least, I want to talk about, uh, as far as ethics of astrology, the last thing I want to get at is just general honesty and integrity. Now, being fallacious or fraudulent and trying to act like you're an astrologer when you're really not, pretending to be one, and you're basically falsifying credentials. That is something in acting like you have more credentials than you really do. For example, the thing about it is you may be attempting to deceive others, but the reality is it's just going to result in self-deception. You're only going to fool yourself because you think you're fooling the people around you. Now, you might fool some of them, but at some point somebody's going to figure out what's going on, and what you're doing in the process. You'll be making a mockery of astrology, and you're going to bring astrology's credibility down. So, and at some point the person will get exposed. So it's not something advisable. It's about being, again, about being ethical, about being honest and scrupulous and doing things, and being honest about yourself. I mean, you could pick up, you'd be surprised if you study astrology extensively, say for like a year, you could amass and assimilate a lot of information. And you don't need to go act like you're actually more than you're really not in terms of being an astrologer. So, really, anyway, that's what I wanted to get at as far as the ethics of astrology go. Well, anyway, people, this is Edwin Learnard. Until next time, stay well.